Which insecurities? The insecurities of being enough, the insecurities of my self-image and my self-worth, my insecurities of being a good agent, being a good mom. Like, which insecurities are you talking about? He says, all of them. Do you know where they come from? Ladies, grab your coffee, stilettos, and hop on the Hot Mess Express. Awesome. So welcome to the Hot Mess Express. I am Cassie Kenna, the creator and founder of this crazy world that I live in, right? People have questioned me the last few weeks about what is the Hot Mess Express? Why are we here? What are we doing? So essentially the podcast dives deeper into my life, my traumas, the real, the raw, the ugly, the happy, everything essentially of what I've gone through up to today, yesterday, and tomorrow, and so on. So it is my reality to the world. I've been in therapy for years, and I really, truly, honestly think that therapy is something that everybody needs, right? It's not, I can talk to my friends. I can, tell them what I'm going through, but they have a vested interest in me. So a lot of times friends side with you, right? They don't go outside of the box like they should and kind of give you the outside perspective. So I've always thought that therapy and counseling is huge. It's a massive part of being able to be better than you were yesterday, which is my motto, right? Be better than you were yesterday. So when I was talking to her, she said, what is the best way for you to get everything out and help you heal? Healing is a never-ending process. I'm going to be healing for the rest of my life, right? So I took the plunge and I said, I got to talk about this. I have to talk about everything that I've been through, because the people that I've actually met throughout my journey have had similar situations, similar impacts, similar traumas, and they're still stuck in it, or they don't know how to get out of it. And so I thought that this was the best platform to do it. I mean, we're in the 23rd century, 21st, 22nd. I don't even know what century we're in, but everybody's listening to podcasts. Nobody's got time for anything anymore. We're all on the road. We're all traveling. We're in a car. I'm in my car 80% of my day. And I try and listen to upbeat music to keep my spirits high, or to keep me out of my own funk. And sometimes it just doesn't work. And so I end up going to motivational speakers that I've listened to throughout my career, just to keep me pumped up for whatever the day brings. And so that's what I'm hoping to accomplish for you guys, is just to give you kind of what's going on, how I got through things, how I've achieved a dream so crazy that I didn't think was possible, right? So that is kind of what the Hot Mess Express is going to be. I'll give you guys a quick background on how much of a hot mess I really am, right? So I've got 4 kids, 16, almost 16, 14, almost 12, and then 1.5. The 1.5-year-old keeps me on my toes. She is probably the craziest child, the wildest child that I have. So you guys will see her throughout probably a lot of these podcasts, because she I can't tailor everything around her schedule. And she's my little helper. She's my little being. So why is the Hot Mess Express important to me? I will tell you right now, not one day goes by that my trauma is not triggered. There's not one day that goes by that my trauma is not part of my everyday living in my everyday life. That goes for every survivor of all of the things that I've been through. Domestic violence, sexual assault, kidnapping, being drugged. There's certain things, certain smells. It's still hard to talk about. Getting up in front of people, doing this. I mean, I wish I should wear a heart monitor one of these days so that you guys can feel just how quickly when we start talking about things. There's times that I'm calm, and then there's times where my heart's beating so fast that I feel like, again, my heart's doing flip-flops, right? Because every time that you talk about the trauma, you relive it. And that is one of the hardest things that people don't understand, is that every time I have to relive it, it's fresh in my mind, right? Every time every time somebody else has to relive a trauma, it's fresh in their mind. How the hell do you relive your trauma, get up, and then proceed to go about your day? I've had to figure out how to compartmentalize a lot of those things. So hopefully I can help you guys learn how to, talk about it and figure out how to get back up and continue about your day. And I know it's on everybody's mind how hard it is, what you guys do. So I'll tell you right now, a lot of people just push it aside. And they put it in the compartment in the back of their mind, and they say, I'm just not going to deal with it. I'm going to stay silent. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to relive it. I don't want to be in it. It never happened. And when that happens, that trauma is something that you have never been able to cope with. That's a trauma that you've never been able to attack and say, how am I going to get past this? Right? That's a first responder issue as well. And again, being a first responder myself, being a spouse of a first responder, it's the same thing. Now I have to relive it through my spouse, right? When they come home and they're like, oh, and they're in a crappy mood. Now I'm living their trauma and my own. That's essentially, in a nutshell, why it's so important to me to be able to help other people break free of that stigma of, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to stay silent. I'm not going to deal with it. Because if I don't deal with it, then I don't have to worry about it. I can live life normally. I'll go back to my very first trauma. I don't trust people now. And this is part of it, because when I was 17, I was at a party with my friends, and these are friends. I mean, when you're 17, you're in high school. Hey, cool. Everybody's, at a big party. I come from a small town. I was drugged and raped as a game. So essentially, two guys decided that they were going to bet which one could drug me quicker, and essentially which one was going to win. And the loser had to tattoo the other one's face on their butt. And I didn't know this until afterwards. Okay, so that for me, so I'm at this party having fun with my friends, quote unquote friends. And I remember waking up on a floor with a red blanket on, in so much pain, and going, what in the hell just happened? And my head hurts. My body hurts. I'm cold. And I walk out of the room, and I look around, and there's people sitting there watching the stupidest movie I think I've ever seen in my entire life. And the one turns around and he goes, yeah, I win. And I said, you win? And I'm like, man, my head's throbbing. What happened? And I'm like, where even am I? Not even where I started partying, right? And they thought it was funny. And he looked at me and he's like, oh man, we bet on you. And I won. And just as that happened, the other guy walked out of the bedroom, who I didn't even comprehend was there. And I'm like, what? And he's like, man, you won. You got her before I did. And I just remember thinking to myself, no way. Like, I trusted you people, right? And I looked at him and I said, what'd you do before he did? And he's like, well, I own your cherry. And I was like, no. Like, he was so proud of himself. And I just turned around and I went back into the bedroom looking for my clothes, and I was out of it. And I said, I have to go home. So I got dressed, went out in the kitchen, and I was like, where are my keys? And everything was sitting like on a table, keys, my purse, the whole 9 yards. And I just grabbed it. And I remember hearing him. And he goes, seriously, you're going to run out of here like a little bitch? And I just kept walking. And I'm like, I remember driving around for hours after that, thinking, what am I going to do? I can't go home and tell my mom. I can't talk to my dad. So from there, it was a horrible next week. And then I remember it was October. I was in my bedroom and my mom came in and she said, what's going on with you? And I just burst in tears. And I was like, Mom, I don't know what to do. Like, this happened. And she just started crying. And she's like, why didn't you tell me? And I looked at her and I said, because we don't have that kind of relationship. What daughter wants to tell their mom that? And so that was kind of a pivotal moment for me of the relationships in my life. Where are we at with them? As my mom, my dad, my brothers, my best friend. Fast forward a little bit to the military. Now, mind you, I did not cope with it. I didn't try and fix it. I didn't try and get help for it. I compartmentalized it like it never happened. And to be honest with you, there's multiple levels that people with sexual trauma deal with. One, you just lose yourself, right? And you go out and you do anything with anyone, doesn't matter. Or you hermitize yourself, right? For me, it was the kind of the roller coaster of how I felt that weekend. Do I go out and hermitize, or do I go out and sleep around, or do I hermitize myself? It was difficult to be able to figure out for me which one was the best one. I ended up going out, drinking a lot more. I was still great in school, still, but I cut a lot of my friends out. I stopped talking to a lot of them, I quit partying with a lot of them, found different crowds, not the best crowds, right? But I was angry. I was so angry. I was angry at myself more than anybody. Fast forward, I joined the military to get out. So I get out, head to, I passed basic training in tech school. I was going out with a bunch of friends and we decided we were in San Antonio and we were going to go to a local club. We were not old enough to drink. I was 19, going on 20. So we was just dancing and, doing the thing. And we took a taxi there. So there was taxis that were vetted on base. And so we called the taxi And the taxi took us there, and he handed us his card, each one of us, and said, if you guys need anything or if you guys want to be, just give me a call. I'll be here for you guys. Cool. Appreciate it. Right. And I remember, and all of them were older than me. And so they were drinking age. And so they were sticking around drinking. And I said, I'm going to go back. I'm good. I've got CQ duty the next day. And so I called our taxi and I was like, hey, can you come pick me up and take me back to base? Yeah, no problem. Cool. Stupidest move of my life is what goes through my head. Like how dumb can one person be? But that's not my feeling, right? That is kind of how society has made me feel over the years prior to me dealing with it. So I hop in, he hands me a water. It's Texas. It's hot, right? Yeah, heck yeah, I'll take a water. We just got done dancing, whatever. So I take his water. The next thing I know, I wake up on his couch, butt naked. And I look down and I'm like, what? I don't even know where I'm at. I have no idea. No clue. And I picked up my phone and there was a bunch of text messages and missed calls and I immediately, knowing from the past, I was like, nope, I'm not doing this again. I am not doing this again. Like, how? And I remember asking, like, I remember looking up and being like, God, what are you trying to teach me? Like, seriously? So I immediately called CQ and I said, I don't know where I'm at. I'm in a, I just, like, I had gotten dressed. I remember walking out of his house and I was like, here's my cross streets. Like, I need somebody to come get me. And they're like, and you could tell on the phone, they were, oh my gosh, what do you, and I was like, no, listen, I don't know where I'm at. I took a taxi and here's where I ended up. I didn't drink last night. There's no alcohol in my system. I'm freaking out. And so they ended up coming and pick me up. It took me back to base. And right then and there, I had to give a statement, relive the whole thing, do a rape kit. And then I never heard anything after that. It was like, pick up the rug, sweep it under, nothing happened. And so we ended up having it was like a get together, right? Like, so all of the squadrons had to get together, right? And there was an information essentially put out saying, listen, we have stopped all taxis allowed on base because there's been some illegal activity. And so now they're being looked into. And that was all we got. No other questions. I handed them the card of the person. That was it. I don't know where charges pressed. I have no idea. No clue. So at this point, now I've got to get testing done, make sure I don't have AIDS, HIV, whatever, right? At 19, can you imagine this going through your head of like, I got out to get away from it and to protect myself, and I threw myself right back into it. So for me, those two situations had altered my life and have essentially, they put me into a horrible, vicious cycle of who I dated, the self-sabotage, the my relationships essentially with everybody and everything around me. And it was never dealt with, and I didn't know until 7 years ago, 6 years ago, when I realized it and noticed it in my marriage. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm allowing so much of this to happen. I had a really good friend the other day ask me, so I told him, I said, I had to go to Orlando and I had to speak in front of these people. My anxiety was high. And, I was telling him about all this. And he goes, why was your anxiety high? I said, because I don't like speaking in front of people, right? I don't. And he asked me, he says, where do you think those insecurities come from? And I said, okay, let's talk about insecurities for a hot minute, right? Which insecurities? The insecurities of being enough, the insecurities of my self-image and my self-worth, my insecurities of being a good agent, being a good mom. Like, which insecurities are you talking about? He says, all of them. Do you know where they come from? I said, through all of my counseling, through all of my therapy sessions, all the talks that I've had, it all goes back to two things. Two people. Well, a couple more than two people, but now I love my parents. And I will not say that my parents caused a lot of this. However, my parents always pushed me to be kind of better, right? And I said, and I would always push back, like, I'm tired of being good. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be bad. Like, I'm tired of being held on a pedestal and not able to go out like my brothers do. My brothers had oh, you want to go do this? Yeah, just make sure you're home by a certain time. Oh, you want to go? No. Why? Oh, because they're boys. Okay. And? Right? So when I got back from Brazil and I was 300 pounds, right? I was double me, double the fun. My dad looked at me and he goes, oh, you brought back two of you. Sure. I haven't seen you for a year, and that's the first thing that you say. Now, in any 18-year-old's mind that's already aware of how thick she got, right? And how much food she's eaten, that's the last thing I wanted to hear from my dad. The first thing I wanted to hear was, oh my gosh, I missed you, right? So I go home. I haven't seen my brothers. My mom did see me. She came over to Brazil, so she saw me. So she kind of knew, like, sister, you may want to lay off the bread and the, feijão and the rice and beans and whatever. I don't want to. It's good. Like, it's really good. So, but my mom was also on the heavier side, growing up too. So, and she's always struggled with her weight. So I get home and my brothers have water balloons. And I remember, like, they were up on the roof and they were throwing them at me and stuff. And I remember my brother going, dang, that target got big. Shut up, bro. Like, really? So I go up the stairs. I'm happy. Like, my brothers give me hugs and whatever. They're happy. My grandma comes up. My grandma walks in and I was like, hey, grandma. And she goes, I'll be right back. Like, nothing was said. And then all of a sudden she comes back and she's got a magazine. Now, mind you, grandma was like the holistic woman of the century. She could tell you how to fix anything with a magazine and some herbs. Okay. So she hands me this magazine and I don't remember what they're called. I don't even pay attention to them now, but it was a diet plan that she had read the other day in one of her magazines. And she's like, here, you should really read this. And I remember looking at her and going, it's nice to see you too, Grandma. So following days, following months, I got the, are you sure you want that? Are you sure you want a second helping? Now, in their mind, they're thinking that they're helping, but they're not. They are so not, because from that day moving forward, even to now, am I anorexic? No. Do I suffer from any of those eating disorders? No. I have my own eating disorder, right? It is called self-shaming. Do I want that piece of cake? Heck yeah. Who doesn't want chocolate cake, right? But I look at that and I go, what would my dad tell me? Do you really need that? So for years that went through my mind. So my insecurities pop up from not just that, but even in school. Kids suck in school. I tell my kids that all the time. Kids are mean. And so in school, it was, the cute boys never wanted to date the fat chicks. The cute boys, I was always friends with the jocks, so it really didn't bother me. And I didn't want to date any of them anyway, because that's what they were, right? They were just friends. But I allowed those things to torment me for years. And I allowed men in my life who did the same thing. They tormented me, emotionally broke me down, and made me feel good after. So I clung to that. So when my friend asked me, where do those insecurities come from? It's where it comes from. So in a couple episodes later, you guys are going to see me in Orlando and having to get up and sit in front of, 900 people. And, as we're editing and looking through things, my buddy goes, man, there was a lot of negativity in that. I said, yeah, there is a lot of negativity in that. There is a lot of self-shaming. What are you trying to do? I'm trying to get out that I suffered from years of you're not good enough, years of you are fat and ugly, years of you can't do that. And so in my mind, in the last 20 years, I have had to sit here before I did anything, and I've had to find the part that goes, I can do this. I am not that person anymore. I am not going to allow those mishaps, those negative things to dictate who I am, where I am, how I got here. I'm going to push forward. So it's hard to sit there and say part of the reason that I am the way I am is because of my parents. Because they did teach me a lot of good. But I will say, and my parents and I have had conversations about, things that we've done. We're not perfect. My parents aren't perfect. I'm not perfect. Crap, I'm not a perfect parent at all, right? So we've had conversations about it, but I've never been able to tell them, listen, you guys shaming me the way that you did caused me to have a lifetime of self-shaming. And what is the one thing right now that society struggles with, that so many girls struggle with right now? Self-sabotage, self-shaming. I'm not skinny enough. My figure isn't right. I posted something here not too long ago that says it took me 36 years to finally look in the mirror and say, God, I'm beautiful. You made me perfect in every way, shape, and form. And I have to accept that. I've had 4 beautiful children. I've got stretch marks. I own them. You have to own them. It's a part of life. It's a beautiful part of life. But don't let me get you wrong. There are days where I go, not wearing that shirt. Well, look, I got a muffin and I didn't even have to bake today, right? So, and I have to teach my daughters that you got to be comfortable in your own skin. I mean, my daughter wears some crazy, she's an artist. Let me back up. She's an artist. So her makeup is spot on for her personality. Would I wear it? No. But I tell her to rock it. The black lipstick for me kind of, but she's got to write her own book. She's got to write her own story. So it's been a long 20 years. And this year it hit 21 years since all of this has happened. And still after 21 years, it doesn't get any easier at all. It sometimes gets harder because now I have 2 daughters that I have to worry about. And I tell them and my boys the same thing. I don't care how much it hurts, how difficult it is. Come talk to me. Because I guarantee you, I've been through it. In some way, I've been through it. The other aspect that it really made me suffer in my relationships, picking the wrong men. I am the first person to tell you, I will see the positive in every person. I could look at so many people and go, you got all this wrong, but I'm going to find the good in you. But I don't do it to myself. Why? Why can I not do that to myself? So now I have to remind myself to look in the mirror every day and say, girl, you got this. You're a hot mess. It's all right. Go own today. Put some sexy shoes on and go own it today. Right? But it caused issues in my relationship to where I would pick the men that were phenomenal manipulators. Because what are they good at? Talking a good game. Talk a good game, get you where they want you, and then flip that script. I've been locked in closets, thrown downstairs pregnant by my husband at the time. I have been beat up in my sleep. I have a bump, a permanent bump on the back of my head from a Yankee candle. Yankee candles are not allowed in any house that I have ever owned from that day forward. No offense, Yankee Candle. Yes, you smell great. But it's because of that where I see Yankee and that's what it does. I'm just like, man, it kind of tingles every now and then. Just a little bit. But I had to move forward past that. I had to get up and go, I can't do this. And I had to reach out for help. I don't do that. I don't ask for help. I go to work and Bree goes, what in the Sam hell is wrong with you? You are pregnant and you look like death warmed over. And I just broke down. Then you get to the point where you marry a first responder Fast forward. And mind you, in the midst of that relationship, let me tell you how many friends I lost. Quote unquote friends. Because I would call being locked in a closet and they would go, I can't listen to this anymore. If you're not going to do anything for yourself, I can't help you. That was my plea for help. And I got silence. So it goes back to the whole trust thing of who can you trust? I have a horrible trust issue. Horrible trust issue. So you fast forward to being, and I know I'm kind of skipping around here, but you'll figure it out eventually. But you fast forward to marrying a first responder and you think that you got your crap together enough to be married to a first responder, but little do you know that that first responder, now I'm not saying that all of them are alike because I will be the first one to tell you that they're not. Everybody is their own individual. And you think being married to a first responder, you're safe. This one in particular was probably the worst of them all. And if I could go back in time and find my gumption earlier in that relationship, I would have. But the night that I found my gumption was the night that I was pinned down and a ring was shoved down my neck or down my throat. And then it got thrown back on me as he walked out to the street and stood there while all of our kids were watching and said, I'm going to wait. I'm going to get hit by a car. And at that point, as I look at all of my kids lined up on the couch, looking out the window, like, what is he doing? I said, something's got to change. I have to change. I've got to change for the better because I can't keep making the same mistakes. That's when I started counseling. I went outside. It was cold as balls outside. He's standing out there and I said, do me a favor. If you're going to stand here and want to get hit, move down 100 yards so the kids can't watch. And I turned around and went back inside. And the next day I was moving to crap out. Now, mind you, I fell back into the same old habits because what's easy? The known, right? So getting counseling, I started to find my voice. I started to find my backbone. So first and foremost, find your backbone. Whether that means that you start counseling or you just start by talking to a friend, start figuring out how to find your backbone. What does that look like to you? Sit down and think to yourself, the things that I've been through, how has that affected my future? How has that affected every relationship in my life? How have I allowed it to affect who I let in, how I let them treat me, what I do to myself? And when I sat down with my counselor, those were the things that she asked me. And I remember looking at her going, I don't know. She goes, you don't know because you don't want to know. You don't know because you don't want to know. The quick answer for me was, you're wrong, I'm right. Of course I want to know. If I didn't want to know, I wouldn't be here. Okay, well then answer my question. I encourage everybody, sit down and take a minute to think to yourself, if you fall in any one of those situations where you feel totally vulnerable to certain things in life, what caused it? Who caused it? How can we move forward from it? So starting counseling, that is where my healing began. And that is where I was able to sit down and find my inner, the real Cassie. Now, the real Cassie has changed over the years. The real Cassie is continuing to change every day because I learn from things that happened yesterday. I learn from things that happened 10 years ago that I have, because a trauma response is sometimes you compartmentalize and you forget. And then you're out doing something and all of a sudden you're like, you don't feel good. You're in a panic mode and you're going, oh my gosh, I remember this. That just triggered it. How am I going to get out of this? Stop, breathe, write it down, take it to your counselor the next day, right? Or write it down and go, this is how it made me feel. Here's what I remember. You got to start somewhere. So again, I encourage you guys, start somewhere. Because I know there are a ton of listeners out there that feel the exact same way that I do, have been through the things that I have been through or similar, and are stuck. You're stuck. Don't be stuck anymore. You don't have to be stuck. You don't have to feel like there's nothing left of you. You don't have to feel like you don't have a voice anymore. So, on the next episode, we will get into kind of deep diving into those counselors, those sessions, and really start how I started turning my life around after all of those bad decisions. And as you know, there's some that I've left out or, will follow through and kind of explain how certain aspects of those traumas and those days of my lives that befolded into where I'm at today. My kids, how it affects my kids, and how it affects the people that I'm around every day. I appreciate you guys listening. For more information, more reels, more crazy stories into my crazy hot mess of a life, hop on my Instagram. It's the Hott Mess Express, HOTT, the Hott Mess Express. Thanks for listening, guys. I'll see you next time.